All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We hear the term product market fit constantly tossed around, but it's just so often completely misunderstood. So today we're stripping away all the buzzwords to look at the cold, hard, undeniable math of building a truly sustainable software business.
Now, get a load of this terrifying statistic. 42% of failed startups attribute their demise directly to one single thing, building something nobody actually needed. Think about that for a second. It's not running out of cash, and it's not getting outcompeted by a rival. It is the fundamental, fatal failure of misreading the market.
So here's our exact roadmap for today. 1. The premature scaling trap. 2. Defining true product market fit. 3. Vanity metrics versus real signals. 4. The math of retention. And 5. Scaling beyond product market fit.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the premature scaling trap, the mechanics of failure.
If you're building a product right now, this breakdown is essentially a survival guide on what not to do. It perfectly illustrates the cascading failure of pouring money into a leaky bucket. It almost always starts with a vague, completely unvalidated hypothesis. Then founders go ahead and deploy aggressive capital into paid acquisition. And sure, you get high signups, which feels absolutely great in the moment, but you have literally zero long-term retention. And without retention, well, your lifetime value just drops to zero, your acquisition costs become completely unsustainable, and you inevitably suffer a total capital collapse.
Moving right along to Section 2, defining true product market fit, the precise definition.
Mark Andreessen actually gave us this beautifully succinct definition way back in 2007, but, in the actual trenches of running a software business, it's really not just a buzzword. It's this thrilling inflection point where a product finally undeniably satisfies a massive market demand. Just think about the sheer, exhausting reality of a product push compared to the absolute chaotic magic of market pull. Before you hit product market fit, you are literally pushing a boulder uphill. Every single sign-up requires massive outbound effort. Users churn rapidly, and you're constantly building new features just hoping to entice people to stay. But after product market fit, it completely flips. Organic word of mouth just takes over, and your engineering team isn't building enticements anymore. They are desperately struggling to keep the servers from crashing under the massive load.
So what's the golden rule here? You absolutely must validate Eric Ries's value hypothesis, meaning you know exactly what core value you deliver and why users will actually pay for it before you ever touch the growth hypothesis. Attempting to scale up new users before proving that core value is the literal textbook definition of premature scaling. It's a massive trap, and you have to avoid it.
All right, into Section 3, vanity metrics versus real signals, finding the truth.
This breakdown is an absolute lifesaver. It shows exactly why certain metrics are just flat-out deceptive, while others give you the cold, hard truth. Total registered users? That just means signing up is free. It measures how good your landing page copy is, not your actual product's value. Venture capital raised? That just indicates investor belief in a good story. What you actually need to be looking for are true signals, things like active cohort retention, deep engagement cadence, and net revenue retention.
To find out if you actually have those true signals, growth pioneer Sean Ellis came up with this brilliant, magic question to just cut right through all the polite feedback. He asks, how would you feel if you could no longer use this product? It's honestly brilliant because, let's face it, verbal enthusiasm is cheap, but this question, this measures acute pain resolution.
The math behind this is incredibly simple, but man, is it profound. If 40% or more of your active users answer that they would be very disappointed if they could no longer use your product, well, you've done it. You have officially crossed that threshold into true market pull.
Let's actually look at how this works in the real world. Rahul Vora over at Superhuman used this exact four-part engine to turn survey data into a highly actionable product roadmap. First, he segmented the data to look strictly at high-expectation customers, the very disappointed ones. Second, he ruthlessly deprioritized the low-intent users. Third, he dug into the somewhat disappointed group to figure out their main blockers. And fourth, he split his engineering roadmap right down the middle, 50-50. Half the time spent on what the loyalists already loved and half on removing those blockers.
By strictly executing that engine without compromise, Superhuman pulled off this absolutely brilliant turnaround. They drove their product market fit score from a failing 22% all the way up to a massive 58%. They literally engineered their way right into product market fit.
Which brings us to Section 4, the math of retention, cohort heat maps. Now, an asymptotic curve, I know it's a big academic word, but this shape is exactly what you are searching for. It proves that no matter how many users churn early on during onboarding, your leaky bucket finally has a solid baseline at the bottom. A bad signal just decays entirely down to zero. But an asymptotic curve, it drops, sure, but then it flattens out perfectly parallel, representing a core group of retained users who are deriving perpetual ongoing value.
Notice how the numbers in weeks 4 through 12 plateau so beautifully? You can see the initial cohort sizes drop off pretty hard early on in those first few weeks, but then they stabilize, hovering super steadily right around 37 to 41%. This is the visual, real-life proof of that flattened curve concept. It shows you that the underlying product-market fit actually exists.
And finally, Section 5, Scaling Beyond Product-Market Fit, Post-PMF Strategy.
Brian Balfour's framework brilliantly shows us that product-market fit doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's actually just one gear in a much larger, four-part growth machine. First, you need market-product fit, which is solving an acute pain. Then, product-channel fit, optimizing for distribution, because remember, products are built to fit channels, not the other way around. Next up is channel model fit, where you're aligning your costs with your pricing. And finally, model market fit, which ensures your pricing actually captures enough of the market for you to thrive.
Nestled right inside that channel model fit is the absolute core rule of unit economics. Your average revenue per user, or ARP, dictates exactly how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer. It sets your CAC ceiling. If your ARP is $100 a year, well, you really have to rely on organic or viral distribution. But if it's $100,000, you can absolutely support those high-cost, high-touch enterprise sales teams.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought about your own growth machine. Let's say you fixed the leaky bucket, you've hit your 40% threshold, and you finally have that beautifully flattened retention curve. The question is, are your channels built for your product, or is your product built for your channels? Because systematically aligning those four fits is exactly what separates the early survivors from the true runaway scale-ups.